So here we are. Welcome back to another episode of the Franchise Mode Commentary with your San Francisco Giants. We're kicking off this episode in the draft. And for our first selection, we are going to go with a switch hitting outfielder, Humberto Sierra. Can play multiple positions, 18 years old, looks to be pretty solid contact speed, glove guy, the kind of guys we have been playing in our roster. So we hope that he can turn into something. And then with our next pick, we could use help at third. That John Hamill guy's interesting. Starting pitcher, unranked. May as well just tag him. A shortstop. Another shortstop who kind of has similar stats. We have anybody who we're a little bit more confident in. Another center fielder we could add to the system. Another starting pitcher we could add to the system. Couple of interesting players here. Another left fielder. Contact speed approach as well. Just looking at some of these numbers. We also had this closer here who was unranked. Who we had pretty high on the list, but usually those guys don't end up panning out. Say we take a chance on John Hamill here. We don't really know much about him, but maybe those stats end up being true for some of those. So we could use some help at third. We'll see where John Hamill ends up. That closer did end up going off the board. Okay. Couple more options here to pick from. We could add another catcher to the system. Another third baseman. Wouldn't be a bad idea. Another left fielder here. Let's take a look at, hold on a second, couple more guys, some relievers. Never really high on them. Okay, we go with Juan Cora, another third baseman, maybe with some pop and good defensive numbers, switch hitter, or another outfielder who's kind of the same profile there. Let's go with the outfielder, Santiago Nava. Left fielder. Hopefully some of those power numbers are true. And we can grab this pitcher now, may as well. Omar Patillo. Left-handed. Add him to the prospect list. Okay, between a right fielder, 20 years old, reliever, maybe with decent hits and walks, lefty as well at 18. We'll grab Baroa there. And the last pick, is anybody really worth noting? Maybe this catcher, Julio Rosa. Grab you for the potential. And that'll conclude our draft for this year. We have nobody in the home run derby. Not a surprise. We'll get Logan Porter back in the lineup momentarily. Okay, we can sign our draft picks now. So let's go through and grab some of these guys. See who we can sign. See who we have to let get uncovered a little bit more. Okay, let's leave it at that for now. Let's bump John Hamill up one. Get Logan Porter back in the lineup for AAA. As the Giants this year are doing quite well in the standings. We're hoping to grab a divisional title. It's what we're competing for this year. We actually are in sole possession of first place here at the All-Star break. We'll take a quick look at who were the All-Stars here momentarily. Leave that be. Okay, Corbin Burns makes it, and so does Logan Webb. Like we pointed out earlier, he's having a Cy Young-esque year. So hopefully he can continue that after the break. Camilo Duvall makes the list. Looks to be settling in on a season to break his all-time saves record. Gavin Lux in at second base. Nice to see. Got anybody in the outfield for us? Stephen Kwan making the switch over to center. A couple more guys to compete with there than at left field. All right, so a decent amount of All-Stars there for us this year, which is always fun when you get that. Looks like Gavin Lux was the only starter out of the crop there, but we'll continue along here, see what kind of trades go down. The Tigers pick up a strong lefty reliever for some borderline major leaguers there, and Trey Lipscomb, Brady Allen in their late 20s. Hopefully trying to repurpose them. All right, let's see if we can sign Hamill. He takes it. Great. Bring in these two guys and keep simulating here as we hone in on that trade deadline with the Reds with a 59-36 record. The Jung-Hoo Lee reunion here. Which team's going to come out on top? We take the first two. Going to go through these draft picks again. Back and forth we go. And it's a split between the Reds and the Giants. Of course, we were in Cincinnati for that one, so not a true homecoming, but Jung-Hoo Lee's chance to play against us again after we traded him there. We can take a look at his stats when we get closer to the deadline here and see what moves we really want to make as a team. We're playing really well, so I'm not expecting us to be super active here at the deadline. Maybe shore up a few things. But that changes things. Wyatt Langford, broken hand. He's going to be out for at least the rest of the regular season, probably through the playoffs. Because there also is that glitch in this game where if a guy's on the injured list and you try to bring him back for the playoffs, it says you have to add him to the 40-man, even though he's on the 40-man. It's quite annoying. But okay, so that changes our approach at the deadline here for sure, as that's a big loss for us. We'll take a look at what he was really doing. Mountcastle is coming back in about a month, a little less. Yeah, Wyatt Langford, 290, 364 OBP, 18 homers. Yeah, that's a big loss for us. He was kind of an even walk to strikeout ratio there, which is always cool to see. Fielding, yeah. That hurts. Okay, so if we're looking at somebody to replace Langford in our lineup, I mean, Elliot Ramos, we've been saying, kind of deserves the chance to be an everyday guy. So we can at least plug him in there for now, as the whole team's been hitting pretty well. Don't know why. Yep, this is the non-DH lineups. Let's get Elliot Ramos in there. We'll just slide him in for now. So we might make a trade here. And have to change it all anyways. But let's see. Do we have another day? I think we have another day or two. But may as well just see what's on the block right now for some teams. Eloy Jimenez would be an interesting one. Definitely a downgrade defensively, but offensively, he's one of the best. He is locked up to a long contract there too. Could potentially slide into a DH role if we want Royce Lewis to take over third base for us next year. So there is a spot for him. Tyler O'Neill, more of a defensive power guy, but has some decent numbers there. So he would help us out defensively. He's also signed up to multiple years there. So don't know if I love that. Charlie Condon from the Rockies, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to trade for him necessarily because he's more of a DH guy as well. Very similar to Wyatt Langford in his profile, but it would probably cost us a lot to get him. See who else is here in the outfielder. Pages from the Dodgers. Couple of years left of control. Could basically replace Elliot Ramos. He's our bench outfielder, platoon guy. Okay. See what else is available. Drew Gilbert. Not really the impact player we would need there. All right, so I'm looking at Milwaukee. Phillies want to trade Harper. That's kind of hilarious. Could Tel Marte, I know, can play the outfield. Not well, though. Though he is still producing offensively at a high rate. Yeah, definitely going to hurt you out there in the outfield. And we need somebody who can actually play the outfield, I feel like. Okay, so based on what's available just on the blocks here, Charlie Condon's interesting out of Colorado. Eloy Jimenez would probably be my first choice, but both those guys are going to cost a lot. Rockies would be a divisional trade. Not entirely sure how much they would be keen on moving in. The Brewers are at the bottom of the league. So let's just take a gander. I mean, I know I said I wanted defense, right? If we bring in somebody like Eloy Jimenez and plug him in the left field. Let's just see what they would want. Okay, let's go to Milwaukee. Take a quick look. Eloy Jimenez, what would you want off of my team there? All right, so Von Burke, I wouldn't love moving. Michael Bush, I could live without. So what do you really want? You want outfielders and shortstops? Well, I could definitely give you Walcott. 23 years old, having a great year again in AAA. Lots of years left of control. Could definitely throw him in the trade, and they're actually interested in that in 1-for-1. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me. So I feel like I'd have to throw in an additional prospect here, somebody to help balance out this trade. Logan Porter's an interesting option. Where are they weak? They could use maybe, they got a lot of young potential starting pitchers. Bullpen still solid. Catching, they could use a backup catcher. So in a way, Logan Porter would make sense there, or even Blake Sable. Joey Ortiz, Carson Williams. Okay, so they have Carson Williams at short, but he can also play second. Walcott can play third. They have Ortiz there, Beck, Water. Yeah, they got a bunch of decent players here. Probably a pitcher would make the most sense to go the other way. And someone like Eloy who's having a strong year, but he is mostly a DH, right? So you have to think about that from a trade perspective. I mean, Devin Harrison's one of our other top pitchers who's in Double-A, having a great year. 20 years old, already 75. I mean, it would make sense, right? A top prospect, probably one of our top prospects in our organization, and Walcott, and then Devin Harrison there as well. Don't really want to trade Huffman or Fletcher for Eloy. If Eloy was better defensively, I feel like they would make sense in the trade, but we could go through with Eloy. All right, let's just take a quick look at the standings and see if there's a better fit there in the outfield, take you along with what my process usually looks like. So, White Sox, Tigers, Blue Jays, Orioles. Check the AL first. A little bit easier to make trades with them. See where they are as far as their outfield goes. Okay, so Colton Cowser, another guy with a year left of control before he hits free agency. So that would be an interesting trade. What would they want from us? Looks like kind of a similar package for Colton there. You get a little bit more reliable defensively, although we could just plug in Elliot Ramos late in the game as a defensive sub, so there is that option. Riley Green, okay, and Dalton Varsho out there in the outfield. They just signed him. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense why they would trade him away. Poliano, yeah, I'm not really interested there. White Sox, Oscar Colas looks to be having a breakout year, similar to Colton Cowser. Really good defensively, for sure. Left-handed bat. Could kind of see what him and... Yeah, definitely a less package for Colas there. But, I mean, we are in a World Series window, so I don't necessarily just want to play it safe. I mean, I am still leaning Eloy, if that is the case. Zach Veen here from Detroit would be quite the pickup as well. Because you have to figure Wyatt Langford's coming back next year, right? And going to be in the outfield. So if you're picking up somebody like Zach Veen, it's hurting you because you'd have Eloy at DH, Royce Lewis would slide in the third, and then you have 4 outfielders you need to play. So it's kind of like a rental you're looking for out of the outfield, or maybe a platoon guy, somebody you wouldn't hate having off the bench next year. Like Verdugo's not bad. Olivares isn't bad. But if we're going after a true difference maker here, I still do think the Brewers present the best offer for us in Eloy Jimenez, and he's not going to cost us that much down the line. He is more of a strictly DH, but we need that offense. We need that power mainly to supplement from what we lost from Wyatt Langford. He's going to strike out more, and play worse defensively, but that's kind of the way it's going to go for us. It is against our page, right? Our page is contact and OBP and defensive mentality. I hate giving up Walcott, but if we're going to go after someone like Eloy, it makes sense. We still have Von Burke in the wings, and we can always replace from within. Hopefully some of those draft picks turn out. Yeah, I think we got to make this trade here to bring in Eloy. If I was a fan, that's what I would want, is for make a splash this year, bring him in. He could slot into the DH role for next year. Elliot Ramos can be the platoon guy off the bench, defensive sub late in games. So let's do it. Let's bring in Eloy Jimenez. If it doesn't work out, we can always trade him and get some capital back. So welcome to the San Francisco Giants, Eloy Jimenez, a guy I was not expecting to be a part of this team, but the injury to Wyatt Langford makes us have to pivot. And just taking a look, I did take a look at some of the stats before we got started here on where we need to add. I mean, the only real struggle was kind of our lefty relievers here in Bummer and Ferguson. Ferguson's actually got things a little bit better over the past few games, but Bummer pitching a little bit poorly, but he pitched well for us in the playoffs, and I'd like to still utilize him. I don't think we're going to get anything that much better. We're kind of pulling at strings there to upgrade in the bullpen. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me for us to go after somebody like that. So let's slide in Eloy into the lineup here, and it should help round out our offense. It's definitely going to hurt us defensively there, and let's actually convert him to a left fielder primarily, just in case the game reads that. But that should help us out offensively there. Still gives us pieces for next year, just thinking out loud. If there's any other big trades, I mean, our starting pitching has been great. The rest of the lineup has been phenomenal. There's nobody we need to get rid of. There's nobody we really else need to add. I wasn't really planning on adding, but that injury to Langford, like I said, changed some things. So, yeah, welcome to the Giants, Eloy Jimenez. Let's see how you do your first game. Oh, yeah, that's what I was kept thinking of, the lineups and pitching rotation elsewhere after that trade. So let's get in Portillo. Hurst is pitching better, so we'll get Hurst in there. And then we need to get in a new shortstop. Will Wilson in here to AAA. Okay. Should take care of that. Get back to it. We didn't score a single run in that first game. Varsho, big trade there. Blue Jays unload his contract to the Braves for a closer, third base, and other reliever. Okay. Our trade with the Brewers, it's a big one. We lose our first 2 games, so maybe the defense is hurting us. I'm not sure, but let's sim past the deadline here and see what else happens. So the Astros grab shortstop, Guardians grab third base, Austin Shelton. Charlie Condon did get traded. He goes to the Orioles for Benny Montgomery and Juan Zamora. Okay, so really getting back Montgomery there in a project for Condon. So that's an interesting trade. All right, so we've actually lost those first 3-4 games with Eloy back in the lineup. Big series here versus Arizona. We dropped the first couple. See if we can't figure things out. Might just be a little bit of a rough stretch. Mountcastle's still injured. We'll leave him there for now and see if we can get the rest of this season done pretty simply. Harrison's back. Let's get him back in the rotation. Still in first in the division. You love to see it. Mountcastle's back, so place him on the bench. Now we got to make a roster move, I would think. No, we're actually okay still, so Eloy's hitting well. Michael Bush is actually hitting really well. But Mountcastle's our guy. I'd prefer to have him in the lineup. I know it makes us a little bit righty heavy there in that lane, but hopefully it helps out elsewhere. Mountcastle before Bailey. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do it. Yep. Okay. So now the team seems to be healthy. We'll see what kind of record we can go on, run we can go on here. Lots of injuries causing the simulation to slow down a little. Clean sweep of Philadelphia. That's nice to see. Just auto fix all the minor league stuff. They're towards the end of their year. Logan Porter got injured. Okay. Another matchup versus the Reds. Right, we forgot to look at the Young-Hoo Lee stats, so you can check that out at the end of the year. And let's get to the September call-ups. Okay, so we are tied with the Diamondbacks for first place in the division. It's got to be one of the best teams in the league. Mariners are playing really well. Yeah. Reds are doing really well. Okay, so unless we fall off here completely, we're definitely going to be in the playoffs. And it's just a matter of, are we getting that first seed, the first round bye? Are we going to be beat up a little? So let's see who we can call up here. Probably could use a pitcher. I would like to see, honestly, what Eric Miller could do as a lefty. We've tried the Mitch Bratt experiment. Hasn't worked out. Let's see what Eric Miller can do as a reliever at the top. We'll bring up Stanley Crane then to AAA. Just try to round out some of these rosters here. All right, you didn't miss anything. We just called up Grant McRae there for some outfield depth at the September call-ups here. I'm just going through the lineups, making sure the minor leaguers are all set. Players are playing where we want them to. And we're just going to ride out the rest of the year here for the major leagues. See if we can wrap up first place in our division. I think if we keep winning series, we'll definitely put the pressure on as we get swept by Cleveland. Big series here versus Arizona. We split. Another big series here versus LA. Logan Porter keeps getting banged up down there. AAA missed out with an 81-69 record. So they're not going to be able to defend their title. And AA also misses out in the postseason. Kind of makes sense. They were both really good teams last year, and a lot of their guys got called up to the next level. So looks like we might have first place close to being locked up. Okay, Langford is back, which is huge for us, but now creates question marks for how we're going to create this lineup. And let's just activate him, put him on the bench for now. Let him be healthy, and we can determine that come the playoffs. Grant McRae didn't even get in a bat. Poor guy. Called up just to sit on the bench for a couple of games. All right. 3 games back. I think a win. We definitely secure the division there. Place on bench. Yep. All right. Final game of the season. and it's lost. But your Giants have once again made it to the postseason. We have clinched the NL West. We are the division winner. We get that first round bye as the 2 seed. The Reds actually get the 1 seed with Jung-Hoo Lee over there. So we'll take a quick look at some of the stats here as we close things out. But awesome news for the Giants, for this team, this organization. We are on the rise as we predicted. May have been a couple of years too early in our hedge there for where we thought this team would be. But we can take a look at some of the league leaders here across the board, maybe some storylines going into the playoffs. We can take a quick look at some of these things here. Just some of the key stats. Matt Olson, Christian Encarnacion, and Corbin Carroll all had 42 home runs. Encarnacion leading the league in RBIs, kind of propelling the Reds there. Okay. OBP, still Stephen Kwan there, which is cool to see. OPS, yeah, Corbin Carroll had an MVP type year. Logan Webb, does that say Jordan Wicks? I thought it said Jordan Hicks there for a minute at the top for wins. Turn things around. Camilo Duvall, we'll take a look at everyone's individual stats shortly. Just want to see some of those key ones here. Wow, 7 shutouts for Sandy Alcantara. What a year for him. Chase Burns leading in strikeouts. Saw Tristan McKenzie there as well for the Reds. Pretty cool. Diamondbacks with Alcantara and Gallen, top of their rotation with Corbin Carroll, MVP type year. All right, so that's the NL. Let's take a look at some of our team stats overall for the year and where people lined up. So Luis Matos, a little bit of a down year compared to where he was last year, but still a fine, respectable year for him. Royce Lewis, again, a little bit down in the power numbers from home runs, but 103 RBIs, pretty clutch guy, still getting on base at a good clip there. Eloy doesn't look like he lost a step since coming over in that trade with Milwaukee. Gavin Lux, still a formidable player at the top of the lineup. Stephen Kwan as well. Matt Chapman has been very consistent over the past few years. 20 homers. Looks like this was his career low in RBIs, probably because he's hitting further down in the lineup. A 250, 350 OBP guy. Nice to see Patrick Bailey continuing to get better. His best offensive year by far in terms of an average and OBP standpoint. RBIs and home runs are kind of in par for where he sits. Luciano looks like he didn't perform as well, so that'll be an interesting conversation come the offseason. But that's for later. Mountcastle, easily consistent as well. Wyatt Langford coming back creates question marks for our lineup. That's for sure. And Brooks Lee continuing to grow, be a good bench bat. Blake Sable actually had a down year. Elliot Ramos did well. And then Eldridge here, of course. Pitching, Logan Webb, okay, he should be in the conversation for the Cy Young. Looking at some of those other overall statistics, probably not going to get there, especially he's probably lower on the strikeout total there with only 167. But great year from Logan Webb. George Kirby got things under control after a rough start to the year. Corbin Burns continuing to dominate. Wiston Hunt had his best year, I believe. Yeah, really strong year from him. It's nice to see Eldridge in his first year. Okay, Kyle Harrison, 4.6. You hate to see that after we just extended him a couple of years at $12.4 million. So hopefully that's just a down year for him. Dustin Fletcher, got a cup of coffee here at the show. Not the best performance, probably be off of the major league roster for the playoffs, but Ferguson, Stashik, Camilo Duvall, like I said, a career high in saves for him with 50. Gets to that 50 mark, which is always a nice achievement as a closer. 280 ERA, 87 Ks. Definitely a formidable part of our back end of our rotation. Kerchak, I believe, also had a phenomenal year as a setup guy. 35 holds, 2 saves. So that's cool to see. And then Mercer was here at the start and got sent back down. So let's take a look at some of the growth on this team overall. Some of our younger guys. Looks like Burns is fallen off a little bit, even though he's still pretty dominant as a starting pitcher. So that's something to keep an eye on. Terrell Huffman, he's going to be He's similar to Fletcher in that way. Low hits, not the highest stamina, so more of a long reliever guy anyways than a true starter, but some good growth out of them. See some of our other C potential pitchers. We did trade away one of our better ones to get Eloy, but I do think it was worth it. I think we got a couple of B started pitchers here. Yeah, Vance Fox, good growth there in Double-A. Fernando Fuentes, Robert Hurst, +8 in the hits. Love to see that. Jose Patillo. Okay, and then back up to the top. Like I said, our bullpen's there. How did Mitch Bratt make out? Not too great. How did Eric Miller do at the major league level? Did he get into any games? Not great. Only 1 2/3 inning, 3 games. Couple of hits, couple of walks. Okay, so we know what that's about now. Landon Rupp, David McDougall's on his way. Stanley Crane, Manny Ramirez, good growth there. Okay, Reggie Crawford still slowly but surely getting somewhere. And then Marshall Jones here as well. Looks to have grown pretty nicely. He might be flirting with a major league spot next year. Logan Porter, some decent growth all around. He's controllable for a few years. Blake Sable had a down year, but nothing really changed with him. Michael Bush, some good growth there. We needed to see that. Richard Ju as well. Some good growth there. Remember, we traded for Jung-Hoo Lee. We'll take a quick look at Jung-Hoo Lee's stats there in a minute. Just get through ours here. Gavin Lux, Vaughn Burke. Not as much growth as I was hoping for out of him. So he might need another year in the minors before he's fully ready for major leagues. Okay, Casey Schmidt as well, just a quad A guy, unfortunately, just really strong defensively, although I do think he might have a spot on the major league roster next year if we do let Chapman go, which seems to be the way this team's shaping up. Okay, we've kind of already covered there. We don't Walcott anymore. Any of these outfielders, Lloyd German got the call up to AAA. Okay, Pedro Salas as well, one of our draft picks from last year. Cam Rubio, Christian Vaquero, decent growth. Okay, Vaughn Brown, glad we gave him some major league time. He looks like to have grown pretty well and could be a good bench bat outfielder next year, projecting into the future there. But it is about the present now. We are here at the postseason. Let's take one quick look. Actually, we can take a look at the stats and the lineups we're going to be going up. Actually, we don't know if we're playing the Reds. Excuse me, but let's just take a quick look at where Jung-Hoo Lee fit on this team this year. So, look to have had a really good year, good change of scenery for him. 19 home runs, 60 RBIs, 270 with a 353 OBP. Stole a couple bases. Look to have played every game for them out there in center field. So kind of a missing piece that they needed. They look to have had a really good year as they grabbed the 1 seed in the NL. So if we do match up against them, it'll be in the CS. But yeah, let's tee it up, right? We're going to do the postseason, and depending on that goes, offseason, the next episode. So let's tee it up on who we are going to be matching up against in the NLDS as we have that first round bye. Is it going to be the Braves from Atlanta or Paul Skeens and the Pittsburgh Pirates? So the Cubs advance. They'll take on Cincinnati, and we will take on Pittsburgh, who upsets Atlanta. Not saying I prefer that matchup. We'll take a look in a minute, but Atlanta definitely still has a lot of key pieces to that team there. So let's take a look at what Pittsburgh has, and we'll tee this all up for next episode. So Starting pitching. Jared Jones is going to get the start in game 1 against us, and then they've got Paul Skeens. Michael Harden looks to be a good young guy for them, as well as Anthony Solamento, Bubba Chandler, okay. Keedy, Raniel Lopez, pretty decent bullpen here as well. Yeah, the back end of the bullpen is nasty. Okay, so they've got some pitching here in Pittsburgh. Mason Miller, David Bednar, and Alex Vesia to kind of close out their back end of their bullpen with some other decent mid relievers in there. Paul Skeens leading the way in that rotation. So some good pitching there in Pittsburgh. We're going to have to go up against, make for some interesting matchups. How do they stack up lineup-wise? So Cedric Mullins in center. Nick York over at second. They got Brian Reynolds, Mr. Consistency, in left. Chandler Redmond. Was this a guy who was available in the Rule 5 draft? Maybe. We'll see about that. Heston Kjerstad, okay, is a member of the Pittsburgh Pirates. O'Neill Cruz. So definitely a lefty lane in there for sure with Redmond, Kjerstad, O'Neill, Cruz, which helps us. Langoliers actually has reverse splits as well, so he fits in there. Brian De La Cruz down here, he always performs well in Kevin Biggio. So they're definitely built on pitching. They have some guys in this lineup who we should certainly be afraid of, and some good defenders overall in there, but they're definitely built on pitching. And does anything change versus a lefty starters? We have a couple of them. Keep Brian Hayes gets in there. Connor Griffin, okay, he's definitely more of a platoon bat at this point. Henry Davis. Their lineup definitely changes versus a lefty pitcher. I think we're actually favored to run our righties out there to start, leave Harrison and Wissenhunt on the back end of that rotation there. But that'll be for the next video. We'll get into the playoffs. We have a matchup against Pittsburgh. We will be hosting that 5-game series, at least the first 2 in San Francisco. Let me know your thoughts, your comments, how we should structure this playoffs based on last year. Should we make sure we dive into a game and try and win one manually? But that'll be all in the next episode. Appreciate y'all watching. And we'll see you for the 2028 postseason run with the Giants.